Welcome to episode number 169. How can asking questions improve aviation marketing? You notice that was a question, right?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about how to use questions appropriately and inappropriately.
I think it also has to be the correct question.
Oh, we'll talk about that too.
Oh, good.
So I'm Paula Williams.
I'm John Williams.
And I'm kind of freaked out by my haircut, but it's shorter on camera than it is in the mirror. But anyway, shout out to Robert Larson, master stylist, and I actually do like it, but we will talk about questions. So, we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more products and services in the aviation world.
Absolutely. All right, so how can asking questions improve aviation marketing? The reason we're talking about this is because our job is to help people sell more products and services, and some of that means getting people to click on your website, click on your ads or posts in social media, getting people to interact with you in a sales process. Getting people to not just sit there like lumps when you're doing a sales call, but actually participate in the conversation. And all of that has to do with asking questions.
And if that's not working, you need to know which questions to ask.
Exactly.
So we can help. You.
And this episode was brought to you by our Sales and Marketing Lab, where we learn everything we know from our clients who are selling more than they used to and are getting a lot better results. Because they are working on making improvements and talking to each other and learning from things that work and things that don't work, right?
Actually, from working with our clients, not from our clients.
That's true. That is absolutely true. Okay, so we all learned about this guy in junior high or high school, right? This is Socrates. Mm-hmm. And we all learned about the Socratic method, right? And we all had a teacher that drove us crazy because they kept asking questions that nobody knew the answers to.
I don't think they teach us in high school anymore.
Socrates? That's too bad if they don't.
If they don't. I'm not sure, but I've talked to some that have graduated high school and they don't know what I'm talking about.
Really? They think it means like soccer tees, like, you put a tee on the floor to play soccer with.
I think, I'm just saying.
Right, exactly. Okay. So, his point, and this was, 3,000 years ago, was basically that in order to really teach someone something, you have to involve them in the process and not just pour knowledge into their heads, right? You can't be a teacher and just spew forth.
Yeah, it's not like the Matrix.
Exactly. Where you are just laying it down and they're picking it up. That it doesn't work that way. They have to be an active participant in the conversation in order to learn anything, right?
Maybe in the future. Exactly.
More recently, there was an Egyptian novelist, and I'm going to ruin his name, I'm afraid, Nagleb Malfort, who said, you can tell a man is clever by his answers, but you can tell whether a man is wise by his questions. So we're talking about the difference between cleverness and wisdom here. Everybody's sick of clever salespeople, but there are never enough wise partners and helpers and things like that in the world. So
true.
Okay. Stephen Covey, who we mention, I think, in every episode. I think we should kind of make it a point to mention Stephen Covey at least once in every episode, right?
It's easy for you to say.
One of the 7 habits of highly effective people was seek first to understand and then to be understood. And to do that well, you have to ask questions.
True.
Okay. So far we agree on all of that. But there are always caveats, right? And this is what you were talking about to start with.
Mm-hmm.
You should never show up unprepared. There is such a thing as a bad question. Basically, it means that you haven't done your research or you don't have the background information necessary to be in the room with the person that you're doing a sales call with or that you are trying to market to, right? You're showing your ignorance, and that is not the purpose of questions at all.
No, it isn't.
Neither is it your purpose to lose control of the sales process, to waste people's time, right? Or to appear uncertain, because all of that will work against you rather than for you.
Yep.
So before you use a question in any of these contexts, you want to ask yourself, is this something I should already know? Is this something I should have researched? Is this wasting their time? Or is this making me feel, or making me appear to be uncertain, or making me feel uncertain? Or is this going to lose control of the sales process? And if the answer to all of those is no, then you probably have hit on a good question, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right. So why are questions better than statements? We've got 3 points that we're going to go over, and 3 reasons why they work better scientifically and in every other way. I guess we don't care whether it's scientific; we care about whether it works, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So first of all, they involve the other person a lot more than a statement would. So if you read a question, even in your subconscious, you're actually trying to answer that question. So you're actually involved in reading something that is a question. Do you know the 3 main secrets to email marketing? You think to yourself, oh my gosh, I wonder if I know those 3 secrets, or if they're the same 3 secrets that I would think of. If I read a headline like that, there is a moment's hesitation. It doesn't work as well as it used to because everybody's bombarded with advertisements, but it still works better than a statement, saying, here are the 3 secrets of email advertising.
Right.
Because then you kind of automatically go, well, that's crap, because I've been working in email advertising for a really long time and I probably know more than this other person. But if it were asked as a question, then that might make me hesitate.
Yeah, so which 3 is she talking about?
Exactly. Right. So it becomes a 2-way conversation rather than a 1-way conversation. And all of the technology that we have right now with websites and social media and, in aviation, we do a lot of our sales work by the phone or in person. So all of that means that we should be using a lot of questions. There is nothing worse than death by PowerPoint, right? Being in a sales presentation where it's all about the company or the product. You've been in a lot of those, weren't you?
Oh, yes. I've been forced to make a few years ago.
It's just like a total waste of 45 minutes of your life that you will never get back. And maybe they do a Q&A at the end. And that's kind of the traditional way of doing sales presentations, is just spewing information.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. And you never want to do that. You want to make sure that it's a 2-way flow. So,
well, there's other reasons.
Yeah.
Because when you ask questions and start a conversation, as long as you're not pontificating,
mm-hmm.
then you have a chance toward collaboration and a higher degree of trust.
Right, that's true. And this comes back to kind of an overall point that your motive has to be clean. You can't be asking questions as a manipulative trick and then pontificating, saying you're just waiting for them to stop talking and then you're going to say whatever it is that you're going to say. You have to actually listen to the answer and care what they say, and be able to tailor your presentation, be able to tailor your solution to the problems that they bring up.
Absolutely.
Right, and that really shows the difference between a real professional salesperson and somebody who's just a hack, right?
Yeah, you want to be able to collaborate and actually sense out their real problem and help them solve it.
Exactly, and if you structure your sales presentation around questions, then it forces you to carry that interaction all the way through, right?
And it helps them to do the same.
Exactly, right. And it forces them to be involved, so they can't go to sleep and just, think that they've been through your sales presentation.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So the second thing is questions show respect, interest, and curiosity. We've all gotten the robocalls and things like that. And the thing about a robot is that it cannot currently listen to you and respond appropriately.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that cannot listen to you and respond appropriately either. And if you're paying someone $15 an hour, you really can't expect a very high level of respect, interest, and curiosity on their part. But if you're paying somebody a lot more than that, then this is the difference. This is what a real salesperson is doing, is honestly, not just as a trick. Again, you can't use any of these things as a manipulation because people see through them. People in aviation are smarter than the average bear, and will see through anything that you do. But if you actually do have an interest in how they're doing business, you do have an interest in what their problems are, you do have an interest in helping them solve them, you do have a curiosity about how that's going to impact their business and their life, and you really are involved in all that.
Sometimes that means saying, when they ask you a question, saying, wow, I need to think about that when I get back to you.
Exactly. And not just spewing the script, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, you got to be able to think.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And in a lot of sales calls, they say, Sandler, among other people, will say that the prospect should be doing 70% of the talking during a sales call. If you can get to 50-50, you're probably doing better than 90% of the salespeople out there. But the only way to do that is to elicit their cooperation in this process.
Yeah, the idea is to do exactly that through a series of questions that are provoking conversation.
Right, exactly. So, the first thing, and this is something that drives people crazy on LinkedIn. Have you ever, someone sends you a friend request, you accept their friend request, and then they instantly send you a sales pitch?
Yeah, I've been known to unfriend people to do that.
Exactly. An option, and I hesitate to mention this because, again, it can be used as a trick, okay? And as long as it's being used with a clean motive, this does work. If you send a friend request on LinkedIn and they accept your request, and you ask them a question that is a good question, that is relevant to their profile and relevant to their situation, you can start a conversation that way 1,000 times easier than you can by telling them about you. They don't care about you yet. They're interested in talking about themselves, or they're interested in finding out if there's a good reason to have made this connection that they just accepted, right?
Right.
So ask a good question as a first step in a conversation. And that shows respect, interest, and curiosity rather than just, I only care about you if you're going to buy my stuff, right?
Exactly.
Which is, that's beastly. I think that's horrible.
Beastly.
Beastly.
That's a word.
Right. Okay. All right. And the last reason, and once again, this is not a trick. This cannot be used as a trick because people are too smart for that. But there is a certain amount of sales resistance that's expected in just about any situation where people put up barriers. They don't want to part with their money. They don't want to make a commitment to anything. They want to keep all of their options open for as long as they possibly can. But if you have involved them all the way through in the process, and they've been asking you questions and you've been asking them questions, and you're working toward a collaborative solution,
right,
then it's them pushing forward. If you don't do any pulling, they can't pull against it, right? So this whole setup with the donkey here, if you're looking at the screen, we've got a guy pulling one way and a donkey sitting down going the other way.
It will never work.
It will never work. And the harder you pull, the harder they will pull. And the inertia is on their side, quite frankly.
Yep.
In a sales situation, their best alternative to a negotiated agreement, if we want to quote Andy Grove, right? Their BATNA is to do nothing. Your BATNA is to not make the sale. So they have a stronger position than you are. And so if it comes to a resistance, if it comes to a tug of war, you lose automatically, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So asking questions will really help you reduce that sales resistance and get past that donkey scenario, which is all too common, right? Okay. All right. So once again, the 3 reasons that questions are better than statements: they involve the other person, they show respect, interest, and curiosity, and they reduce resistance. So you might be thinking to yourself, how do I ask a great question?
They need to be sincere.
Yeah.
Knowledgeable.
And here are some examples of some good questions. What priority would you give this problem? That causes them to, that's something that you couldn't possibly know. So it doesn't show an unpreparedness on your part. It shows a sincerity and understanding. Is this important to you? Is this worth me spending my time telling you about this, or you spending your time listening to this? What impact does this have on your business? That helps them get, if we're using Sandler technology, takes them into what they call the pain funnel, which helps them decide, is this a problem that's worth solving? Is this something that is going to be worth whatever it takes in time or money to solve this problem? How would things change if you considered this option? So once again, you're not telling them you should do this, which is going to make them sit back in donkey position, right?
Exactly.
You're saying, how would things change if you did this? That puts it in a hypothetical scenario so they can entertain the thought without committing themselves, right? Okay. Here's another one. What are the 3 factors most important to, and this would be a really good blog post title. What are the 3 factors most important to, or a good email header, those kinds of things. There is some statistics, whether you believe statistics or not, out there that say that email headlines or email subject lines that are formatted as a question get clicked on something in the order of magnitude of 3 times more than subject lines that are formatted as statements. And the reason is curiosity, right? And also that involvement of the user. I have to understand this, or I have to get to the bottom of this, or I have some curiosity about how they would answer that question. I know how I would answer that question, but I want to know how they would. Have you tried this? Once again, you're putting it into a hypothetical and getting them to imagine a scenario. So, once again, you're pulling them out of donkey pose.
Well, and we use these sometimes during our consultations as well. Even if we're not trying to sell anything, we're trying to help people.
Right. So, and that really is the whole point of sales, whether you're selling an idea or whether you are selling a product or service or whether you are just trying to help people past an obstacle of some kind. Have you tried this? Have you tried something else? Have you considered this option? Things like that. Right? Okay. Okay, so where can I use more questions? There's a question. In aviation marketing, we often do face-to-face as often as we can. That's always the most effective thing. And you can ask more questions in face-to-face consultations, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many. Asking questions one-to-many is kind of a skill that you have to develop over time. But facilitating a room full of people is a really important sales skill, and we highly recommend learning that one, because in a lot of cases, especially if you're selling to large organizations, you're going to end up in front of a room full of people.
Yeah, if you can set up the room ahead of time so that you can more easily facilitate, that is much preferred. Exactly.
So whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many, or in a teleconference, same thing, one-to-one or one-to-many, or many-to-many. In either case, being able to ask good questions, a lot of people are afraid to, because they're afraid they're going to lose control of the sales process, and they're going to lose control. If I ask them this question, then I lose 5 minutes of presentation time. But you gain their hearts and minds, and they actually listen to the 5 minutes that you actually do get to present your product or service, if it makes sense, and if you get to that point through this process. Okay. Websites. You use this as a title of a web page or a blog post or something along those lines. Those are a lot more likely to, in fact, Google had an algorithm change, and I don't remember what the name of it was. They always have cute names for their algorithm changes. And it is based on questions people ask in search engines. So what Google wants to do is answer people's questions in the most efficient way possible. So if you think about a question that your customers ask and write a blog post answering that question, you're a lot more likely to be in what they call a featured snippet on Google, which gets you a lot more visibility and exposure. And your search engine results, where you show up on that search results page, is going to be better because it answers a question than if it doesn't. Okay. Emails. Once again, we talked about email subject lines and how those work better when they're questions. Social media. If you have a very active social media audience, and I wouldn't try this until you start getting some comments and things on your posts. You don't want to ask a question and have it just sort of have the tumbleweeds roll by.
No.
Or have crickets, the sound of crickets be deafening on your social media, on your Facebook or LinkedIn platform. But if you do have people who comment on a fairly regular basis, ask a question and get people talking. And that is so much more interesting to the rest of your audience than just you talking. You know, having a dialogue is 1,000 times more helpful than a monologue.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And mail. So if you're doing a direct mail piece, there are entire copywriting classes about how your headline is supposed to be a question.
Exactly.
And also, you know, even postcards. If you ask a question on one side of the postcard and answer it on the other, that is 1,000 times better than just making a statement, because then it doesn't ever get turned over. They just chuck it in the trash, you know, on their way past. Most people have a garbage can on their way in the door as they come in from picking up their mail, right?
We do.
Yeah. So you want to make it past the first pass of the garbage can. And you do that by asking a question on one side and giving the answer on another side of a postcard. Yeah. So that's another cool tip. So for more help with anything that you're doing, if you're having trouble getting across to people, getting in the room for those sales meetings, if you have a sales meeting coming up that you'd like to talk about, if you want to run an ad by some folks and see how it resonates, or whether this heading works better than that heading, or this picture works better than that picture, our marketing lab is really the place to do it. You get 1 hour of consultation with us, plus you get networking.
As many hours as you want with the gang.
Exactly. People are more or less active in the Facebook group as they choose, getting and giving advice to each other, and they're great. I'm really impressed with the quality of people in our Facebook group.
But they'll be straight with you, whether you like it or not. So
Absolutely.
When you ask a question, they'll give you the straight skinny on it.
Right. And we also have in-person networking opportunities at NBAA and some other events. We try to get together whenever we can. Custom consulting, we already talked about that. Our book club, custom SEO reports, and monthly projects. So this month is March, so we are actually talking about resales and referrals. So that's our project for this month.
Great.
Okay. So if you want to talk about this or anything else that we've talked about, go ahead and click the Contact Us button, and let's sit down, and we'll probably ask you questions, right?
You can bet on it.
About your current marketing challenges and other situation, and how we might be able to help or not, and how that might work going forward. So,
of course.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great day.